The wind howled across the barren prairie that night, rattling the shutters of the lonely cabin like restless spirits. Inside, the fire burned low, throwing long, crawling shadows across rough-hewn walls. The rancher sat hunched at his table, a glass of cheap whiskey untouched before him. His face was carved by years of loss, his wife taken by fever, his son swallowed by war, and the land itself sucking more sweat and blood than it ever yielded. He'd long believed nothing could surprise him anymore. Then she stepped into his life. The woman looked half ghost, half wild thing, skin pale from hunger and cold. Her moccasins worn clean through, leaving raw streaks on her feet. Her tangled hair clung to her cheeks. Her lips were split dry, but her eyes, dark, pleading, burning, held something fierce, something even desperation couldn't kill. She didn't belong in a place like this, not on the edge of the world, not in his cabin. Yet there she stood, trembling as though every bone in her body threatened to shatter. She lingered by the fire, holding herself until slowly, with trembling hands, she let the shawl slide from her shoulders. It hit the floor with a whisper. Her voice cracked the silence. "I took it off," she said, her words barely sound. "Please," the rancher's breath caught. Her body told stories no one should have to tell. Long scars across her back, bruises still blooming, burns that had never fully healed. She wasn't offering beauty. She was offering surrender, the last weapon of the powerless. He froze, breath turning to stone in his chest. His fists clenched until his knuckles blanched white. He had faced cattle rustlers with guns drawn, men who'd spit death right between their teeth. But nothing had ever struck him like this. What he saw wasn't shame but cruelty, a cruelty so raw it made his gut twist. For a long moment neither of them moved. The fire popped, the storm whispered against the window, and something sacred and broken filled the room. Finally, he stood, the chair legs screeching against the floorboards. She flinched, bracing for pain. Instead, he turned away, grabbed the thick wool blanket from his bed, and wrapped it gently around her shoulders. His hands were rough, but his touch was careful, like a man cradling glass. "Not like this," he said, voice low and steady. "Not ever like this." Her knees buckled, and she collapsed into the chair he'd just left, clutching the blanket like it was her last tether to the world. A sob tore out of her, jagged and raw, the kind of sound only someone who's carried too much too long can make. The rancher stood over her, chest heaving, eyes dark. He felt as though the walls had witnessed a vow, something unspoken but eternal. Then, like a storm breaking, he turned to the door. His boots pounded against the floorboards as he snatched his old rifle from the rack. The sound of metal sliding into place cut through the cabin. He looked back. The firelight caught the edge of his face, sharp and burning. "Tell me who did this to you," he demanded. "Tell me their names, and I'll see to it they never live to touch another soul." Tears blurred her sight as she shook her head. "You don't understand," she whispered. "It's not one man. It's all of them." Her words hung in the air, heavier than bullets. The rancher's grip tightened around the rifle. If that was true, then his fight had only just begun. Her story came in broken pieces, breathless, trembling. She spoke of a wagon train gone wrong, of traders who'd turned predator when law wore thin and whiskey ran thick. She spoke of being seized at night, dragged from one camp to another, of men who smiled with grease on their lips, who had laughter instead of mercy. The rancher listened, every word sinking into the hollow he thought long dead. He didn't interrupt, didn't look away. When she named a place, a crooked corral 2 valleys over, his face hardened. He knew it, and the slow, ugly anger that filled him felt like fire in old wood. "You should have told someone," he said finally. His voice wasn't accusing, just tired, searching for something right in a wrong world. She looked at him, and for the first time, he saw not just a broken woman, but the shadow of the girl she used to be. "Shame, fear, disbelief that anyone could care, I tried," she said softly. They laughed. Said a woman like me was asking for trouble, that no one would listen. Her hands twisted the blanket tight around her. They said if I screamed, no one would come. And if someone did, they wouldn't care. He closed his eyes. He knew the kind of men who could say such things. knew the way cowards hid their sins in a crowd. He opened them again, eyes burning with something sharper than rage. Resolve. That night, as the fire sank to embers, he began to plan. Not fast, not furious, steady, deliberate. Revenge taken in anger was messy. He wanted something clean, final, righteous. He thought of the corral she'd named, the men who laughed beneath its broken roof, the way their routines folded into darkness. He memorized every detail she gave him. Faces, scars, where the moonlight struck a corner of the fence. Every word she spoke became a map. When he finally rose, his decision sat in him like stone. "You'll rest here," he said. "I'll ride before dawn." Her eyes widened. "You can't," she whispered. "They'll come for you. They'll burn this place," he shrugged, a weary motion that carried more truth than bravado. "If they come, they'll find a man who kept his word." She stared at him, realizing that this wasn't just pity. It was something older, harder, an oath carved into a soul too stubborn to quit. "If I don't come back," he said, "you run. Take the creek path. The dogs can't follow as easy." Her laugh was dry but real. "You think I'll leave you?" "I think," he said, "I'll leave you a chance." Before dawn, the rancher saddled Dusky, his old black gelding. He moved quiet as breath, checking his rifle, tucking extra rounds in a ragged pouch, tying rope, a knife, and 2 flints. Outside the prairie was silver under a thin moon. He paused at the cabin door, hand on the latch, and found her watching from the shadows. "Remember," he said softly, "if you must run, take the creek path. And above all, live." He tipped his hat once and rode into the night. The journey was slow, each mile tightening the noose of anticipation. He kept to the gullies, to dry creek beds where even coyotes wouldn't track. The moon rose thin and sharp, cutting the plain into silver bones. When at last he saw the crooked corral, it was worse than he remembered. A place of leaning posts, broken fences, and the stink of feed, beer, and sin. Lanterns swung low, bobbing like captured stars. He counted 5 men. 3 by the fence, laughing too loud. 2 inside, slouched by the fire. 1 was already asleep, hat tipped over his eyes. The rancher waited, breathing slow, watching until the laughter dulled and the night swallowed them. Then he moved. The shadows took him in. He slipped along the fence line, rifle low, steps measured. The first shackled door he found creaked under his touch. Inside came the soft sound of breathing, too light, too afraid. A small voice stirred. He cut a rope, felt a hand slide into his, trembling and weightless. He led 2 of them out, small as ghosts. Then came the noise. A chair scraped. A man cursed. Another shouted, half drunk, half awake. The spell broke. A gun cracked the night. The rancher ducked, firing once, clean, fast. A man dropped. He grabbed the children and ran, every stride a scream of muscle and grit. Bullets tore through the air. One splintered the post where his hand had rested the day before. Another kissed his side, hot and cruel. He didn't stop. Pain was proof he was alive. The corral faded behind him as he crossed the dry flats. The horizon bled with light. Back at the cabin, the woman waited. Every gust of wind made her flinch. Every distant echo a ghost of gunfire. The dogs barked once, then went still. Dust rose on the horizon, rider and horse, limping but alive. When he burst through the door, the world seemed to exhale. He was pale, bleeding, eyes wild but clear. 2 small girls clung to his coat, their faces pressed against him. The woman dropped to her knees, hands shaking. She took one of the girls in her arms, her heart splitting open. The sound that left her was somewhere between laughter and grief. He sank against the wall, hand pressed to his side, blood seeping through his shirt. His breath came ragged, but there was peace in his eyes. "You did it," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "I just evened the ledger." Then his gaze softened, distant, as if he were watching the fire from somewhere far away. For the first time since he'd shouldered that rifle, he let himself feel it, the pain, the exhaustion, the weight of doing what was right in a world that punished good men for trying. Outside, the storm that had haunted the prairie began to break. Rain fell soft on the roof, washing away the dust, cooling the heat of vengeance. Inside the cabin, the fire burned again, not for warmth this time, but for something reborn. Hope,